here in France on Friday, Emmanuel Macron toured the French factory of German-owned Thermomix kitchen appliances. It's one of over 100 industrial and business sites opening to the public this weekend in lead up to the French president's annual Choose France summit on Monday. Macron will be hosting some 200 foreign business leaders at Versailles Palace, hoping to set a new record for foreign investment. But it comes as France's economy is struggling, with factory closures outnumbering openings, a soaring national debt, rising unemployment. That's not to mention global economic setbacks due to the war in Iran. For more, we can bring in Renaud Foucart, a senior lecturer in economics at Lancaster University. Good morning, and thanks as always for taking the time to speak with us. Is it fair to say that this summit comes at a time when France's economy is really not doing so well? I mean, just Friday it was announced that the GDP unexpectedly shrank by 0.5%.
The European economy and the world economy is not in a very good shape. As you might have noticed, there is a war going on right now. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Energy prices have been increasing. France is not doing particularly well, but France is not particularly bad, at least within Europe. So if you look at the growth of France and you compare to Germany, for instance, we are doing relatively fine in France. So it's not a very good time, but in this very complex, unstable world, France can sell itself as part of Europe, an island of stability, not part of trade wars, and also a country with a relatively stable leadership and a tax approach that is trying to attract foreign research and development investment. So I think that's the bet of Emmanuel Macron right now.
Yeah, I mean, Emmanuel Macron is certainly would agree with what you just said. I mean, he's trying to put a positive spin on the situation, but a lot of people in France are pretty upset with the French president's policies. I mean, even on Friday, another announcement was from French tire maker Michelin said that they're considering a plan to cut as many as 1,500 jobs in France. I mean, have Emmanuel Macron's policies really been successful in creating jobs here?
The starting point of Emmanuel Macron, so the end of the François Hollande years, were time of much higher unemployment than today. So I think it's absolutely true that there is a general process of deindustrialization, and I don't think any of Macron's policies can totally overturn that. I think Macron has done two things over his mandate. The first thing is to somehow make it easier for people to get and leave jobs, which is at the same time decreasing unemployment, but also making jobs more precarious. And then he has done the second thing, which is to bet really on attracting R&D in more technological sectors. So the idea that somehow France is a country that within Europe has kept some strong manufacturing, but to try to be strong also on services, and in particular on technological services. So you will see at Choose France more bragging about data center and cheap French electricity attracting frontier AI labs and data center than about companies like Michelin. This is clearly something that is in part a political choice, but also the result of those soaring energy prices and the fact that within the world, while Europe is not the most growing actor, we are rich countries, but also aging ones, and our growth comes simply more slowly over time.
Yeah, as you mentioned, those sort of bigger industrial jobs are the ones that are getting lost. And here in France and elsewhere in Europe, there's a lot of talk of reindustrialization, a lot of political parties emphasizing how important that is. But what would a successful reindustrialization strategy look like for France? And is it even possible?
Defining reindustrialization, I think, has been one of the main ideas of Europe's strategic autonomy, which is something that Macron has been pushing quite hard, is the idea that we cannot be totally reliant on the rest of the world. But this has been clashing also with the fact that Europe, at the same time, praises itself as being perhaps the last open big bloc to trade. So right now, reindustrialization is something that is, to a large extent, military spending. So if you see German factories were closing massively, they are largely reopening because they switch from making steel and cars to making guns and tanks. So this is something that is in part really happening, the reality right now in Europe. But reindustrialization also means building industries that are sustainable in global supply chains. So maybe not having that big factory, but knowing that you can buy inputs from all over the world for cheap and have companies that are truly resilient. And so France's job is, like the rest of Europe, to survive in a time of demographic decline. French people are relatively young, but we have fewer babies, we are aging. So the problem is not necessarily the number of jobs, it's the quality of those jobs and the productivity. And so this is, I think, the big challenge of Europe, staying productive in a time where we get much, much older in the coming decades.
So Macron this weekend or on Monday is going to be trying to attract foreign investment, but he only has 1 year left in office. His successor could very well come from either the far right or the far left. And that's, of course, as France's debt is very, very high. Is investing in France sort of a hard sell at the moment, given the political uncertainty and the budget?
The main strength of France is that the rest of the world is often much worse. So, of course, France has major challenges. We've talked about the public debt. I've talked about aging. So France's main problem in terms of fiscal sustainability is pensions, very generous pensions for the boomer generation that are totally unsustainable for the next ones. Macron has tried to change that. He had some reform that are not, in my opinion, a very good reform, but it's frozen. It may be unfrozen by whoever comes next. But if the next person to come is Jordan Bardella, for instance, you will see that they've tried a lot to be less scary, at least on the economic part. So the Rassemblement National 10 years ago, Front National was about, we're going to leave the European Union, we're going to leave the euro, we're going to break all the rules, we're going to do like national preference and everything. Bardella is much more cautious. He's still saying we want fewer migrants, but he's kind of Georgia Melonizing himself, making himself much more frequentable. And so I think in terms of that stability, I think it's quite the message that both Macron and Bardella are selling to investors is don't be scared, France is stable. As for the far left, it's possible they go to the second round, but I don't think there is any poll putting Jean-Luc Mélenchon above 30 or 35% in the second round. So I think it's still a very, very far-fetched, unlikely scenario.
All right, well, we'll be keeping our eye on the summit next week and see if Macron can bring in more investment. Renaud Foucart, thank you again so much for your analysis this morning. That's Renaud Foucart, a senior lecturer in economics at Lancaster University.